Yeah, it's September 9th, 2025, and I'm going to be posting this on my other channel, which I do have this one on YouTube, just so people know, because my other channel, Blondie Broadcast, which I will post this to, but this is the spiritual channel that I have. It's just so you know, a lot of people don't, because, you can't post anything on, as far as the other things that I do with information. So I'm going to put this on. This is my other channel at Enlightenment KMM on YouTube. I'll, put probably the links. The links are down below, so I have, several other channels that I use on there. But very rarely do I get to post. Only these spiritual type messages I'm going to post onto YouTube now, because, it's very important what's going on. Yes, we're in September. With all the let's just say the crazy stuff that's going on, with September, you know what I'm talking about. Let me just say this and get back. That it clearly states that we won't know the day, the hour. Yes, are we in that season? Yes, but the day or the hour? No. And Satan's greatest lie, you have plenty of time to get right with God. That's true. That's why they want you to know, right? You have plenty of time. I think that's what most people think about anything. Whether you're in a relationship, a business partnership, or anything, that you have plenty of time, right? We all have things that we procrastinate on, but I don't think you should be procrastinating on this. That's what we've been trying to tell people, right? I mean, I read a lot of the comments that from other people that, people that I happen to listen to here and there, whether it be on the spiritual or any other subject matter, okay? I listen to various things. I mean, you wouldn't believe how many people, try to mention something, whether it be scientific or spiritual or anything else, and nobody listens. Yes, because I think time has run out. Now, we see a lot of people saying, you have time to this time. No, time's run out. Because as we all know, God's timing is different than our timing. Just like the calendar's been changed. There's all kinds of things. People will argue about that. Oh, it's this calendar, that calendar, the moon calendar, the moon times, the solar calendar. Guess what? Most of it's been corrupted anyway. Okay. But, as far as, I don't think it's one versus the other, because it depends on what you're talking. The thing is, we have so many, I feel bad saying this, but uneducated people who, if you don't know, then don't say, there's reasons for everything. And of course, let me put back in, as I always do, teach my gospel, not your opinions. Okay, I'm going to put this in again. I made this meme up because, I think this is one of the most important memes far as in the sense that this is what we're seeing again with everybody going crazy about September. Teach my gospel, not your opinions. And like I said, I understand, maybe people say they have a dream. Well, I really don't trust always dreams. Okay. Let me just say, dreams can be influenced. Now, I put in my other video I did a couple weeks ago about, you never know if somebody had something growing up. So you don't know what they're being influenced by, if it's some kind, and maybe they're not even aware of it. I don't know what to say. And I do believe a lot of people believe what they're saying, but it doesn't matter. That's why we have the Bible, everybody. That's like your guide and him himself, right? So he warns technology targets the soul of a man. Okay, or woman, because, all this AI and technology, everybody, is, you wouldn't believe what some of this stuff can do. I mean, we know how it could also, it knows that things that you are going to look up and, hey, you just could go down the whole line with that. I mean, you wouldn't believe. And, AI is nothing new anyway. It's not. It's been around a long time. And while you plan vacations and events, Satan schemes destructions. Yeah, it's another meme I made up. 100% true, right? So, for all the people, oh, I'm going on vacation. I know I have people in my own family that go on many vacations. Right? I mean, I myself have never been a person who goes on a lot of vacations. Okay. Work until, no matter if you're physically at work or at home, it's still work, right? And just like this is work too. Except I'm happy to do it. I'm happy to do it because I think we have a lot of confused people. That God isn't the one of confusion, right? Who does all the confusion? The enemy. And a lot of people out there are putting out confusion, such as what's going on this month. I'm not saying they intentionally do it. I do believe there's people who do not intentionally do it. But then you have to step back and ask yourself, what's going on? Because, I think we've all had to do that. I've done that myself with whatever it is. Because you say, this doesn't seem right, like I said, the enemy is very sneaky. And, with the technologies out there, everybody, what can I tell you? Because, after all, like I said, we don't know, when you get some kind of watch a video, let me just give you an example. You don't know exactly where that person lives or what, they're being influenced by or, what the story is. Okay. You really don't. So, that's why, again, we have our guide of our, the Bible and of course, Jesus himself. That's who you should be talking to, not relying on other people. Other people he gives messages to, but he's not telling you to rely on them for everything. And the winnowing fork is in his hand. Yeah, I think so. I bet you it's very shiny and very sharp because, it is unbelievable the things that are going on. You see it getting worse. If you watch any of the law and crime channels or court TV or any of that type of thing, okay, or just the news, your local news, you see an uptick of the most disgusting crimes, things that are unheard of. They themselves, I have a lot of links I put in all the time where a lot of these people who work in that line of work are like, what's going on? They're like, we cannot believe the amount of crimes in certain areas, like, for example, just in the schools with the pedophilia that goes on and a lot of them are women, not just men. Okay, that it's it's over the top. And I've told you, people, if you have children in daycare and things like that, you need to check out who they're with. Okay, because they can't even tell you anything. They can't. Watch out for traps and snares. Okay, well, traps and snares. I think we're seeing traps and snares right now. Which that's why I say I felt a need to make this video because people need to step back and get a grip, okay? Because, of course, do we all hope and pray that, very soon something's going to happen for, such as being removed from a lot of this evil? Absolutely. But in the meantime, for the selfish people, and I will say that it's very selfish, but everybody had the opportunity at one time in their life or another to get to know the gospel, right? Okay. But you don't think other people deserve the same thing that you had? I think that they do. And, there's unfortunately people who didn't even grow up with that who have more faith than people who did. No wonder they get with the lukewarm thing, okay? Because Jesus says, many in my body do not have little faith. Some even doubt I exist, have great faith. Well, that's true. Think about that. Like I said, there are people who have more faith, even if they might even have, say, a religion that they grew up, even though that may not be quite the right thing. But, they think it's because they grew up that way. But they have more faith than some of the people that, they're in there. I'm shocked that people, they're on this mega church or there's a trampoline and they're dancing. I never knew it was that disgusting. Let me not get into all that, but I'm sure you're pretty much aware, or you should be. And I just wanted to quickly mention this. This is for all the people who do not think that there can be darkness. Now, I'm not going into the 3 days of darkness thing. That there's some people who talk about that where they're full of it because they put things in that are ridiculous, okay? But there is a thing as the darkness is coming because most people have where it talks about this darkness, okay? And they're not exactly sure themselves, but they mention it in one way or another. This is a fact for this system. I've been talking about this for a year. I have it in my links. I have reputable people because within even this scientific community, there's a lot of frauds. Just like we know NASA lies, they omit things, okay? And so does, SpaceX, we know people. What's the sign of SpaceX? The dragon, okay? So you go figure that out. Okay. And some of this stuff coming in, they blame it always on rockets. That's not just rockets coming in, and everything has an excuse. But I just wanted to show this to you as far as, they're talking about that comet out there, this, now. Okay, we know there's all kinds of, who knows what's out there. But that's why you should go to Mud Fossil. He literally shows you that a lot of this stuff out in space is really biology. Okay, I'm not going to go into it and let him explain it to you, but it makes sense when you know about the gases and all of that. But anyway, this is a good example of this. I put this in my other video about Hercolubus, which is AKA Planet X, okay? And then you've got these stellar cores and all this, but Nibiru is a humongous system from way back. It's like a bunch of dead planets, okay, and cores and things. Well, I just wanted to give you an example of, you see the little Earth down there? We're down there, that little thing. And then you got, Jupiter, which people say, oh, Jupiter's huge. Yeah. But look at this Hercolubus, Nibiru, a.k.a. Planet X. I mean, that could blow your mind, right? I'm just trying to give you an example of, when it talks about the sky turning red and, the sun being blocked. I'm just giving you a clue as to how that can happen. So for all the other people who think that's impossible, no, it's not. This same system is the same system that came around when there was the Great Flood, hence Noah's Ark. Okay, and that's what happened. And everything, pretty much was destroyed by the waters, okay? Pretty much, there's people who can, argue this way and that. But, we also know that there were giants after that again, that somehow either something, made it through. We don't know, or, because we know there's a lot of caverns under the earth. Okay. But whatever happened, now we have people who want to create these things in labs and dragons and, abomination. I never thought in my life I'd ever have to use the word. But it is sick, like I said, I'm not going to go into a long thing because you all probably are aware of it. And if you're not, go do a lot of, I have tons of videos on my other channel, my regular Blondie broadcast, which you're probably listening to. But like I said, I'm going to put this one on my, I have only a few videos on my spiritual channel on YouTube. Because as we all know, everything gets taken off, or you can't even make a video. I mean, because you get interference. I see a lot of people talking about that again, that they have interferences. Yeah, we all know that about the electronics. Plus, there's a lot of this CME, coronal mass ejections going on and everything else. And yes, spend time with the Great Shepherd. Well, that's the main thing. I mean, I can't stress to you enough how important that is. I understand, some people it depends on your lifestyle, but that's one of the most important things is to take time out to read the Bible yourself. Okay. Don't just be because this is the thing, everybody, what I wanted to say, and this is a very, very true thing. And I'm going to tell you the truth. That the more you study the Bible yourself, okay, the more he will give you the information. He will answer your questions. That's why, it may not happen immediately, but when he knows, I think that you've done this and you're fairly consistent. It's just like anything in life. You're being sincere about it, right? So Jesus knows your heart. That's one thing. That's the best thing ever, that somebody knows your heart, that you don't have to worry about that. Is it, isn't it? He knows. So the thing is, when you start doing that, you'll just know. I mean, whether something comes up in your own life or however it is, different people get different ways that they get things answered. And the more in tune you are with your own spirituality, the more you'll recognize it, trust it, and you don't even worry about it because you know it's coming from him. The only thing that you might worry about, like I said, is sometimes if I've had dreams where I don't, normally I actually don't dream about, like I have a prophetic dream, but I usually get things about, weather or cataclysmic that I do. Well, that's like a prophetic thing, but I don't always trust that, but, a lot of it is, what's going on. But far as, a vision is different. But the thing is, that doesn't mean everybody's not going to get things like that. And we know there's a lot of charlatans out there, unfortunately. I mean, I find that to be so horrible that people actually do things like that. Well, because they make money. I mean, a lot of people, it's funny, the biggest frauds always make the most, that's a clue for you. If you see somebody who has a channel that, I'm not talking about, because somebody wants to give somebody something. But, they have all these different ways to pay, and they claim there's a clue for you right there, okay? Unless, you have a ministry. But then there's another clue I'd like to talk. I'm not going to name names or, I do call people out, though, sometimes on my other channel, or I have, where I'll put in the posts. I just recently put, people talking about the Galactic Federation, everybody. That's the fallen. That's the fallen. They call themselves the Galactic Federation of Light. Yeah, get off that. Get off that. Yeah, that's as bad as the dragons with SpaceX, okay? But I'm just telling you that, there are people that, will have even, this is, I'm going to say this is my opinion, but, I think it's pretty accurate because you should pray for discernment every day. That, it's amazing to me that people will have, I'm talking about a ministry. I'm not talking about people just give messages because God can give anybody a message. But if you're a ministry is basically you're pretty much teaching other people certain things. Well, if you're not educated yourself, I don't know why you have a ministry. If you are not able to read, you should be able to read most Bibles, as far as I'm concerned, if you have a ministry. Because if you can't, I'm talking about in your own language. I'm not talking about, if it's in another language. Okay. Then there's something not right, okay? I mean, I feel bad having to say that, but, this is too important to just of course, people shouldn't be accuser of the brethren, so to speak, but guess what? Don't milk that for whatever it's worth and say, well, you can't accuse me. But yes, you can be. If you're not an educated person, then how are you teaching somebody else? That's all I'm saying. Do you think, that'd be like if you sent your kids to college and the teacher didn't know how to spell or anything, you'd say, well, what are you doing there? Of course, we know we have all the pervs there instead. But anyway, it's about that terrible. Talking about brainwash, they all come back from college and it's like a nightmare. I can't believe how many people tell me that. They go, I paid that kind of money for college and my kids are brainwashed. Well, we hear that. Right? That's because you should be putting it in their head, not some wacky professor. A lot of these people are not good people anymore. They're not. They all stick together like glue. And yes, Jesus always says, be about my Father's business. Well, that's true. Be about my Father's business. And guess what? The evil people are about their fathers. You know who their father is? Satan. Like in the beginning of what I was putting here. There's a lot of people, believe it or not, who evidently have some kind of bloodlines, or they just have such faith in the evil one that they don't seem to care about anything. And that's very unfortunate. I would move on to somebody else. But, people pray and pray for their own families, and we've all done it. We all know people, whether they're in their own family or, or neighbors or whoever, and they're not listening. You can only do so much. And you shouldn't be nasty to these people either. I personally think that's terrible how there's some people you'll see videos where they're I don't think you should be confrontational. And to tell you the truth, it's dangerous nowadays to be that confrontational. I mean, there's a time and place, and everybody has to get to a place where they're going to, And I also want to mention, I have podcasts in case you don't know that. I wanted to bring that back up. I do have podcasts. You'll find that in my links. I have most apps that I'm connected to. And then pray over your family, pets, food and water, homes and travels, which, a lot of times I put in. I'm not kidding you. I would do this daily, if not weekly, weekly. A lot of people do it weekly. I actually do it daily because you never know what's going to come up. And pray about your weather. I pray about that every day. What the weather's going to be, protection against weather events, all types of weather, any kind of thing that can happen, whether, it depends where you live, whether you're in a place that have earthquakes or, anything, tornadoes. Pray for all of that, and pray for your neighbors, even if you don't know your neighbors. Pray for your neighborhood. It's amazing how many people live in neighborhoods that they don't know nobody. Nobody knows anybody, right? Because, normally if you live in a bigger city or the suburbs, in the country, I would say it's a lot different. But it is ridiculous how this all is. You don't know who your neighbors are, but you trust somebody as a video and you know nothing. I know, you don't know me either. But the thing is, I give, on my other channel, I give you where I'm getting it from. It's not top secret information. And yes, Jesus is at the door. Yes, he is. That I would say for all the people talking about September 23rd, 24th. Yes, he's at the door. But, look, this is my opinion again. I think what's at the door, I don't think it's what we think it is. I think there's going to be a shake-up, everybody. Shake down, shake up, or whatever. So to wake people up, because they don't seem to want to wake up. We all know this. It's very sad for a lot of us. A lot of people don't want to wake up in our own families. And I think they're going to have a choice. Either you're going to wake up or you're not. It's not going to be the lukewarm thing. It's going to be one or the other. So anyway, God bless all of you, and pray for the safety of our country too, with all the wackos running around. And I hope you're going to have a wonderful weekend coming up. And like I said, remember to keep praying, do this,